1, introducing government in America. There are the sections that we get to cover for all of chapter 1, which is the shortest chapter for the entire semester. And we're going to cover 3 of the 5 today. And then the second lecture for this chapter will be next week, and it'll be the last 2 sections. So here we go. The essential questions, as you can see here, what are the defining features of democracy? And what are the functions, values, and characteristics of American government? That's kind of what we're looking at for today. So when we define government, it's mainly the institutions, processes through which policy is created for us, the people. And we'll talk about public policy in a second, but it's kind of all what we've created to do all this stuff for us. That's what the government is. And so they have 2 basic questions they have to answer. How should we govern, and what should government do? So those are kind of the ones we're looking at right there. We call governments the rules of the game. Let's say the whole thing we're doing here is a game. These are the rules we have to follow, okay? So there's a second part, public policy, which we talked about very quickly in the last slide. This is the basic decisions that government makes that affect us, the people. So these are laws, and you can see this is the policymaking agenda. It could be any of those decisions, regulations, mandates, same-sex marriage we're going to talk about, immigration. You're seeing all of these things that our government does that immediately impacts us, the people, whether you like it or not, whether you voted for those people or not. These are public policies that come around. So all governments have 5 basic functions. Number 1, maintain a national defense. And in 2011, 9 years ago, still the same pretty much today, you can see the source was the Washington Post. America's budget for our military is $711 billion. Well, you could see it's like the next 12, 13 countries, their military budgets combined don't even equal ours. So you're seeing we spend a lot of money to protect the people. Again, you could think this is good or bad, but this is what a country is supposed to do as a government to protect its people. Number 2, provide public services, teaching, police officers, firefighter, hospitals, nurses, doctors, people who work for public services, the electricity grid, the infrastructure of a city. All these things are for us to maintain that we function day to day. And you can see there how much we spend in 2015 under Obama. We spent about $4 trillion that year. That's what the government spends, federal government. We preserve order, number 3, and this is our police force, and they protect us locally. And who protects us nationally? So if you don't know, it's the National Guard. And again, these are part-time military people who could be working a regular job, could be a teacher at your school. They're the ones who are there to protect the country, and if we need them, we call them up to service. Usually in a natural disaster like a hurricane, an earthquake, could be any of those situations that we call them up. Then number 4 is we socialize the youth. And this is the Pledge of Allegiance. You say it pretty much every day when you're physically in school. Socialize. Now, you could say this is indoctrination. We want you to pledge a faith that you respect America. You cherish it. It's one nation under God. Now, under God is that phrase that has come under fire. Like, what if I'm an atheist? Do I have to say it? You don't have to say this at all. But it's there for us to help you become a better citizen when you in the future. So you love your country. And again, it all starts as a child. And as you grow up, I've been doing it for my entire life because I've been a teacher pretty much for 22 years. And you can see here 17 states have flag pledges, including Texas, and 2 have vows to die for their flag. Can you guess those 2? I'll give you a second. One of them is Alabama and the other is Tennessee. I wouldn't have guessed Tennessee, but I would have guessed Alabama. You can look those up if you want to see those. TEA is our agency in Texas that tells us what we need to teach you, the student. They're the one who helps shape what we do here for you. For me, it's AP College Board, but it's very similar to what you have to do across the board in terms of TEA. And lastly, your favorite thing, to collect taxes. Mr. Antoon believes there's 2 things in school that are guaranteed: tests and grades. And in life, they say death and taxes are 2 things that are guaranteed. You're going to be taxed. They need the money locally, state, federally. Every state has a different way of operating. We don't have state tax. California has state tax. Federal government will always income tax you. This is how it works. They need the money to spend, hopefully back on you or back on the country itself. And you can see where your tax dollar went. At any point, you can pause the video and check things out. I'm not going to spend too much time, but it's really interesting to see 27% of every dollar taxed goes to the military. That's a lot of money for that. So it's something you can think about. We should have education somewhere. It's only 2.5% going to education. If we really want to ensure our future is great, we would give more money to education, guaranteeing that whatever education you get is the greatest that you can get. But it's something to think about as you guys get older. All right, so government was one term we went over, and politics is the other term. So in this case, the definition of politics is the process of selecting our government leaders and the policies they produce. Well, Donald Trump is our president. He was picked in 2016. It's not your fault because you weren't voting at that point. But it's whether it's fault or not, he was elected, and now he gets to dictate, in a sense, what our policies could be. He is not a lawmaker, but he influences. He has the wall being built, immigration issues. He can create executive orders just like Obama did. He is an executive order president at this point because he has how Congress is split. So they're going to block everything he does. So now they go by the executive order. So our presidencies today, last two at least, have been big time on the executive order. So it's what our leaders do within the confines of the government rules or the laws that we create. So there's government, there's politics. So really government's the big picture in terms of a Venn diagram. That's not really a Venn, but you know what I'm saying. Politics is what's within that. So here's a question you could ask. You could do the same thing with Obama, but I'm going to use Trump as an example. Well, the key here is government's the rules of the game. Politics is how you play it. So hopefully you can see that analogy as well. So there's Trump, and you could see kind of he might be outside the box. It could be more of a Venn diagram because he's doing things that are not according to the rules. They're unconstitutional at some point. He is currently he appointed interim secretaries of cabinets that haven't even been confirmed by the Senate. So he's bypassing that law. He appointed somebody who gave him lots of money to the Postmaster General for the United States Post Office, and they're shutting down post offices around our country and picking up boxes or locking the boxes. You're starting to see stuff like that. That's considered outside the law. It's not his right to do that. But again, he appointed somebody who doesn't want the post office to have mail-in ballots for the election in November. So again, you can see Nancy Pelosi, who's now fighting him, and I don't know if you know that from the State of the Union address, where she gave him that really obnoxious clap about him when he finished. So again, a lot of conservatives hated it, a lot of liberals loved it. Whatever the case is, I'm just presenting it. Now, let me give you a really good chart from your textbook. You might not see this yet because you don't have the textbook, but this is kind of government and politics. What's the difference? Well, remember, it's the rules of the game and then how you play it. And I'm going to give you an analogy from baseball. So on the left, you see there, pitchers can start either from the windup or the stretch. That's government. That's the rule. Well, I'll give you a couple pictures coming up here. That's Clayton Kershaw. I'm a Dodger fan. So you could see here he's starting from the windup. And again, they're slowing down his curveball. One of the great pictures in Dodger history, if not in baseball. You can see he's in the windup. They have a choice to do that. So you can see another one, he's in the stretch here. So again, you're seeing on the right, it doesn't tell pitchers, so that's the rule of the game, stretch or wind up. But it doesn't tell pitchers what they can do to throw fastballs, curveballs, changeups, split fingers, knuckleballs, forkballs, sliders, if I didn't say it. And it doesn't tell them what kind of windup they need to be. They could be a little crazy up there. But again, that's how they play the game. Another one for baseball, because I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. Batters, as you can see that batter right there, he has to keep both feet in the batter's box when he hits. If he steps outside of the batter box and swings and hits the ball, he's out automatically. That's the rule of the game. But it doesn't say within the confines of that how they play the game. That's politics. So they can crowd the plate. They can choke up on the bat. They can have an open or closed stance. I would love to show you this in person, but again, I'm giving you through the video. And again, there's other ones, guys. I'm not going to go through each one of those. But let me give you a couple of analogies in terms of our government. The rules of the game are from the Constitution federally. Article 1, Section 2 says the House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other officers. But it doesn't say here, not a rule, it's how they play it. The majority party uses their power to elect a speaker and other officers from the party, thus enabling them to push their own legislative agenda. They get to make laws the way they want to. So Nancy Pelosi is a Democrat. She's running the House. Well, she has a lot of power. Third most powerful person in our country. Mitch McConnell is the Senate Majority Leader for the Republicans. He has a lot of power. He is not ranked high up on progression to the president, but he's a very powerful player and has been so for a long time. So you're just seeing some of the ways, if you want to look at these, and how they break it down, the rules of the game on the left, and then what they can do within those confines of that. I'm not going to break this down too much for you there. Now, here's a political cartoon, and we'll talk about these in class. But is this good or bad that politics, Congress moves really slow? You have to make up your own mind. There are good things about a political cartoon or this situation that goes really slow, and there are bad things. People have different opinions. Well, if I'm a Republican and Donald Trump's in office, I don't really like the Democrats, let's say. I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I want both houses together, so everything moves fast for me. But if I'm not a Republican, if I'm a Democrat, and I don't like Donald Trump and what he's doing, this is a good thing that politics moves very slow. But the key is our founding fathers created our government to move slow, and we'll learn about that as time moves on. As you can see here, well thought out changes, both sides agree on it. Bipartisanship. Partisan is divide, two sides, three sides. In this case, they work together. Bad would be nothing gets done, gridlock, partisanship. So again, you guys can look at either side of that side of it. All right. So in class, we're going to review this a little more, but I'm going to break it down for you very quickly as we go through this. The policymaking system is the process by which anything comes into being and evolves over time. It could be immigration, climate change, any of those. I'm going to focus on same-sex marriage today. So this policymaking grid, I'm going to expect you have quiz questions on this. You're expected to know the steps along the way. So if you want to take notes now or you want to take notes in class, we'll kind of focus on this one a little more. So number one, it all starts with us. It actually all starts and ends with us, we the people. We're the ones who have these issues. We're the ones who voice our opinions, and it comes all the way full circle around the chain. So number one, people have interests, concerns, problems, and we voice them to somebody, but we can't get it done because we're not legislators. So we have these things called linkage institutions. And linkage institutions can consist of parties, elections, media, and interest groups. And we're going to learn about those way later in the semester, but you have to understand the basics of them. They're the ones who we voice our opinions to, and they in turn will connect it or put them on the agenda. They're the voices for us in a sense. They can get it loud, especially the media. They're the ones who have a big play in today's day and age. So we have those two. Now, and the third one is if it gets heard loud enough, these attract serious attention from public officials, legislators, Congress, state officials, whatever it may be in that situation. And then we have these are the players, the four policy-making institutions. It's just the three branches of government and kind of the bureaucracy, which are ones who do certain things within the federal government as well as the state governments or even local governments. These are people that work for it but not really elected. And that's what I kind of put here so you understood bureaucracy at this point, because you should know the other basics. So there we go. So we're now, if it's heard well enough, let's say same-sex marriage gets all the way to the policymaking institutions, now they have to make a decision on that. And who made the decision on same-sex marriage in 2015? Was it the legislative, executive, or judiciary? And we'll talk about that in a second when we get to it. All right, the last two steps are, if the policy is created, what happens? It's a choice that the government makes. They have to spend taxes and expenditures, change regulations, change forms bureaucracy-wise. Let's say same-sex marriage gets to this point. It's been passed. All of a sudden, you're now going to get a marriage certificate, and the old marriage certificate says male, female, and it has no other gender requirements. These have to be scrapped, and they have to add a new one that will tell you same-sex marriage or allow same-sex marriage at this point. So you're seeing the policy impacts us to some degree. So you could see, again, what it says in the chart. And lastly, it's what affects us. So now we, as a people, let's say you agree with same-sex marriage. It was a great day for America for that day because it's treating everyone equally. Let's say that's how you believe it. Hey, yay, it's done. Great. I'm going to re-elect those leaders or love those leaders more. Okay? I'm going to give money because it happened under Obama and Biden. I'm going to give money to their campaigns because they did a great thing. Thank you so much. Okay, but let's say you're against it. Let's say you're a conservative and you believe it's a marriage between a man and a woman. Okay, that's whatever you taught you that's what you believe in. Are you going to be happy about the 2015 decision? No, you're not. You will now vote against those leaders. So you have three options to do: elect or re-elect or vote against. That's the first option. You can see it there: re-elect or vote out the leaders. Donate to a campaign, or not donate, obviously, or donate to the opposition, or campaign for or against that politician. And that is what the policymaking system is, guys. Now let's talk about same-sex marriage when we look at it. So again, it comes back to affect the people. Here's what somebody can do. Ann Coulter is a conservative pundit who is, I would say, I want to say radical, like she's going to start something, but she's very extreme. Here's her slogan about Trump, talking about Trump. I broke my promises, betrayed my friends, and used my office to help my family. But hey, at least I'm not Hillary. So Trump pretty much won on the fact that it was anti-Hillary. Nobody really wanted to vote for either ones, but that's kind of why he won. One of the big reasons why. So you can voice your opinion about that to take down the side, even if it's one that you agreed with, but now you don't. So that's kind of what you have the right to do. So, damn, I always try to time that drop to land at the exact same time. So let's talk about same-sex marriage. It dropped in 2015, and which branch of government decided on it? If you said the Supreme Court or the judicial branch, you win. So they dropped it and said it was, and they were trying to solve a lower court issue with it to make it uniform across the country, and we're going to learn about that later. But what happened in Kentucky right away? This is somebody who didn't agree with it. She was she was a bureaucrat for the state of Kentucky, and she refused to hand a same-sex marriage license to a same-sex couple. She was arrested. It doesn't matter if you disagree with marriage. If you work in a bureaucracy, you have to follow the laws. The law is now same-sex marriage is allowed across every one of our 50 states and territories. So you could see in Kentucky, there she is here. I'm not going to mention her name. I don't want her to be infamous because I believe it's wrong that she broke the law. But conservatives lauded her. And when she got out of jail, they played the Rocky theme like she was the champion about her fighting against same-sex marriage. What happened in North Carolina? The bathroom, gender bathroom issues happening in North Carolina. So the NBA came out and said the All-Star game in 2017 was supposed to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. The NBA said, nope, we're not giving you this All-Star game, which would bring you millions of dollars. We're going to give it to which city has been ravished by floods many times in the past 10, 15 years. I didn't mean to laugh like that, but again, it happens so much that the NBA said, we're going to help out New Orleans in 2017. And North Carolina, if you get rid of this bill in your state legislature, we will give you back the All-Star game in the future. There's many guys. This is in Indiana, where Vice President Pence was governor prior to doing that. Sorry about that. Mike Pence said this was about the cake issues. Again, it's not his fault, but it was the same thing with gender bathrooms, all gender. And the conservatives got really upset about this. In Georgia, they were doing the same type of thing. Disney films a lot of movies there, including the Marvel universe was filmed there. And they said, if you don't take this bill out of your state legislative, out of the court, not out of the courts, but out of the state, we're not going to film our movies and give you lots of money. California, they passed the laws. Liberal state, you can see Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, North Carolina, well, to some degree, those are conservative states. California's not, so they did pass that as well. The state of Oregon, Colorado had issues with bakers who made these wedding cakes, who refused to give cakes, and the Supreme Court protected one and didn't protect the other. So it's really interesting. We haven't solved all this stuff, but you could see for the last 5 years, we're still having issues with same-sex marriage and things that involve equality among genders. So you could see there, the same-sex couple won in Oregon, and in Colorado, they lost. So, guys, there's many different types of policies. It could be congressional, it could be the president's executive order, a court decision, and regulations by bureaucracy. You could see a lot of these. And Laswell, this famous politician from, looks like the 70s, he said, what is politics? He defined what it is, and it's about who gets what, when, how. This is also an economic principle you might learn in econ, but it's simply, he's defining what politics are. It's who, the players in the game. It could be an individual, group, or organization. What do they get? You could see it could be recognition, influence, a public policy, justice for something, and how they get it. Was it through a speech, a rally, a compromise? Any of these things on this list. And you can also add when. Does it happen now or is it later in the game? So it's just a quick definition of it and a kind of an interesting way of looking at it. I don't want to go into too much, but Laswell's model about what is politics can also influence econ as well. All right, guys, we are done for today. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you later.